on the run.
Offside.
Deliberate destruction on the roads.
You can see the damage to the vehicle.
And a death trap camper van. We're in the driving seat tonight on Police Camera Action. Being in the driving seat of a police car can be an extremely hazardous occupation. Danger lurks at every corner. And swift reactions at fast speeds are required at all times. Many police forces are taking a new look at their emergency response driver training schemes. None more so than London's Met Police.
We're turning right, so mirror indicate now for the benefit of the vehicles behind. When the police have to respond to an emergency call, safe, fast and accurate driving is essential. And as with most things, practice makes perfect. But recent figures have shown that every year between 15 and 20 people are killed in accidents involving police cars. The Metropolitan Police have stepped up their efforts to reduce such collisions. They've introduced a new safe driving policy, and it means that people like Mark are taught that no emergency is so important as to justify risking a collision. In addition to a strict program of training and retraining, the Metropolitan Police are also introducing black box recorders, like those used in aeroplanes, to their pursuit vehicles. The box will record the direction and speed of the vehicle, plus indicators, brakes, ignition and lights, so that this box will have a very clear account of just what happened to this vehicle before, during and after an accident. And it all helps Mark to respond to an emergency call and get there safely and swiftly.
Turn left at the next roundabout, please.
It's in pursuits like this in Stoke-on-Trent that the skills taught to emergency response drivers are tested to the limit. This is especially the case when the fleeing driver, in the black car in the distance, tries to lose the police by driving at maximum speed through narrow residential streets with no regard for anyone's safety. He's suspected of being involved in an earlier disturbance in the city. The pursuing Staffordshire officers are deliberately keeping a space between themselves and the target car. This gives them a safety zone to allow for the unexpected, which widens as they negotiate the traffic lights and a busy roundabout. Realizing that he's never going to get away on the main roads, the suspect careers back onto residential streets. But it's not simply driving hazards police pursuit drivers have to contend with. Irritated by the dogged determination of the officers, the target tries a new tactic. Reversing up the road, he rams the police car, pulling off part of the vehicle as he then speeds away. The rear seat passenger bangs their head in the skirmish, and amazingly, a child pops up to look at the damage. But even this unprovoked violence is not enough to put off the officers, and they continue to give chase. Around 50 police officers are seriously hurt in police pursuits every year. In a final bid to lose the police, the target turns into a large housing estate, perhaps hoping his local knowledge will put them off his path. But with the police shadowing his every move, the suspect decides to abandon the car and make a run for it. Out of shot of the camera, he and his colleagues are swiftly arrested. The driver was later sent to jail for a string of offences, including dangerous and drunken driving whilst disqualified and criminal damage. At speeds of over 100 miles an hour, police driving skills have to be particularly acute. But it's when trying to reach an accident on a blocked motorway using the hard shoulder that officers most expect trouble. This time, it's a lorry driver. All sorts of drivers can create a problem for the police. This cabbie seems to forget that he's on the M11 rather than picking up a fare on Park Lane. For his reckless actions, the taxi driver is given a verbal warning. Officers are also in danger outside their cars, especially on the hard shoulder where they're unprotected from the fast-moving motorway traffic. Here in America, this patrolman's insistence probably saves the life of the man he's talking to. The officer suffered severe bruising in the collision, but was back on duty after a short time.
You okay? No.
If the officer had opened the driver's door just a fraction more, then he would probably have suffered far worse injuries. These officers want to become motorbike traffic police. They've already gone through a rigorous selection process before they arrive here at the world-renowned police driving school at Hendon. Now, however good they thought they were on arrival, this 2.5-week course consists of intensive training and re-education in balance, control and maneuverability. One of the most important lessons all of these officers will learn is to carry out a roadworthiness check on their machine each and every day before they go out on patrol. It's a vital safety message that the driver in our next clip clearly didn't understand. This motorbike was stopped in London. The brake disc is completely rusty for an even more troubling reason.
The fact that there are no brake pads in the system, the friction of the pads on the disc is the intended method of stopping the vehicle.
But even if there were pads fitted, they wouldn't have worked, as the braking system at the front is completely dry.
You can see the inside of the reservoir is totally devoid of fluid.
Volkswagen camper.
But those on four wheels can be just as negligent. Police were called to this Volkswagen camper van by worried trading standards inspectors. The officers were amazed it was even on the road. This is the state of the accelerator, so whoever was in the driving seat must have been agile with his footwork. But how was he deaf to the extra road noise? His passenger fared no better. The seat simply comes away, and underneath, a bodged repair covers an even bigger hole.
The mounting bracket this side is missing. If we look under the rubber matting, you can see it's being very crudely repaired with a piece of aluminium foil, or not much thicker. There's no mounted bracket at the passenger seat. You can see a large hole's been...
More worryingly, the rust underneath has penetrated several important stress-bearing areas.
The main outrigger which supports the body onto the chassis. Come towards the front. The front chassis leg member is seriously damaged due to corrosion, and you can see the holes running across the whole length of it.
And no one in the car could rely on the seat belts. They were only connected at one end. Failing to check your vehicle before climbing into the driving seat can have disastrous consequences. Here, a fault has caused the car on the M1 to ignite. As with many car blazes, only the fire service can put out the flames. The car is wrecked. Criminals have always tried to get away from the police, but lengthy, high-speed chases are potentially dangerous both for the police and for innocent members of the public. Stopping a determined criminal has never been easy, but the manufacturers of this device say at least it makes it less difficult. Stopstick, as it's called, uses steel spikes to puncture the car's tyres in much the same way as the better-known Stinger does. Each of these polystyrene tubes contain 36 hollow steel quills, each with a sharpened spike at either end. The idea is that the spike allows the tube to penetrate the tyre, but then breaks off, allowing the air to come out through the hollowed quill.
It means that after about 30 seconds, the fugitive has no inflated tyres left and is forced to come to a stop.
Police have been pursuing this white van through North London. Despite being midnight, the bright lights of the London roads give enough light for the helicopter crew to film the pursuit without using their thermal imaging device.
Right, it's a recip. He's now southbound A10.
The van had earlier been reported stolen, and rather than stop, the drivers decided to run for it.
Still northbound, high speed towards the...
Officers believe the best way to stop the pursuit is to puncture the tyres, in this case, using Stinger. But before deploying the device, they have to get authority from a senior officer in the control room.
Yeah, unit coming in, your signal spoke that Stinger is authorised. Stinger is authorised. Computer. Going out, Harford Road.
Junction with...
Just before the junction, the van driver brakes and swerves, vainly trying to avoid the Stinger.
Southbury Road, junction, Nags Head Road.
Yes, he's at the junction, MP, and it's straight across, same direction, still northbound Harford Road.
That's the speed, northbound Hartford Road, that's past the junction. I'll take it from
But now it's only a matter of time before the van is forced to stop.
Yes, the vehicle is now slowing down. Location of him.
The van starts to weave across the road as the driver loses his steering.
Passing the junction with Carter Hatch Lane on either side. Receipt.
But rather than run, the driver decides to give himself up. The 16-year-old, who was already on bail, was charged with taking the car and driving without insurance or a licence. But it's not just small vehicles that need to be stopped before they can cause untold damage. This coach on London's North Circular has been stolen from a depot in Leighton. The driver, high on alcohol and camping gas, claimed he was told in a vision to take the coach and has already smashed into a string of vehicles on his path to the main road. The Stinger unit by the two police cars up ahead is ready for action. The driver smashes into the crash barriers, trying to miss the spikes, but is forced to a halt as the device wraps itself round the coach's front wheel. Police draw their batons and rush the driver after he threatens to set alight the gas canister he's been sniffing. He's soon subdued and arrested.
The Stinger is to the front.
The driver was later sent to jail for 3 months and disqualified from driving for 3 years.
You can see the damage to the vehicle.
In part 2, what not to do in the driving seat of a dumper truck, why police couldn't believe what they found in the third lane of the motorway, and how not to cross the road.
Weighing in at 8.5 tons and with a top speed of 18 miles an hour, a JCB is hardly designed for racing. But here, at a special field in Kent, that's exactly what I'm about to do. I tell you, this is real fun, but I wouldn't recommend using one of these things as a getaway vehicle. And that's exactly what the criminal in the next clip tried to do.
It's not so much hot pursuit as what pursuit when 3 police cars tail a stolen dumper truck through the streets of Wantage. As a getaway vehicle, it's severely lacking in the speed department, but police believe the driver's been drinking heavily. You can see him throw what turns out to be an empty spirits bottle onto the road.
Thank you, 113. Continue, Foxtrot 102. Yeah, 102, the driver has obviously just thrown a bottle to the side. It was a broken bottle
He's wanted for a burglary in the area, committed after he fled from an express train from London. The Chiltern Air Support Unit track his every move using their powerful Night Sun searchlight. Perhaps thinking he was too easy a target for the police on the open road, the criminal trundles through the fields.
Just for the log, the description of the fellow is that he's wearing a reflective jacket. He is an IC3 male with closely cropped black curly hair. He's now heading south.
Police fear that if they force the dumper truck to stop, it would write off their patrol cars.
This is an articulated dumper truck. It probably weighs in excess of 2 tons. I would be concerned if we put any police vehicles in its path because it will go over the top of them.
The driver then forces his way through a fence into the Harwell Atomic Energy Research Centre.
The car park of Harwell itself, 97. I believe it's called Hillside.
Yes, Roger, he's gone into Hillside, understood.
Yeah, there are 2 traffic vehicles just to the south of him. Yes, we have a decamp.
But like his choice of getaway vehicle, his chosen route of escape is not a good one. Scaling a fence, he fails to notice a steep drop beyond.
Go to the base of the Night Sun. Yeah, 97, he's lying on the ground. We've got a police vehicle, a police officer on foot. If he climbs that fence, he's just over the other side of the fence.
Yes, Roger. Now you go to
The criminal broke his leg in the fall and is soon arrested.
Yeah, 97, for the police officer's information with the prisoner, the dumper truck is just the other side of the fence. It appears to have run on and rammed into something. We do have this incident on
Despite
video.
lasting for more than an hour, the pursuit only covered 7 miles. Soon after the driver recovered from his injuries, he was jailed for 21 months. 75% of the information reaching a driver's brain comes through the eyes. One of the key differences between a skilled and an average driver is how and where they look. Now, Doug here runs a defensive driving course, and he's here today to assess how well I fare in the driver's seat. Should we go and have a look?
And that last sign we passed, the triangular sign?
I missed it.
Okay, all right then. We're going to have to really try a lot better, aren't we? At,
Well, but I would,
spotting the
in my
signs.
defence, I would claim the gentleman, the elderly gentleman who was... I spotted him ahead.
Well,
and
would you believe that the sign was for elderly people?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, extraordinary. Now,
So you missed the sign, but you spotted
But I
the
spotted
hazard.
the elderly gentleman.
Okay,
so-
we'll settle for that. We'll go for that one. You say the traffic lights suddenly changed.
Yeah.
Do they always suddenly change?
No, there's a set time sequence, I guess.
Yeah. When you see a green traffic light, what is it going to do?
Eventually change.
Exactly. So if we're thinking that, should it suddenly change? Should it be a surprise to us?
No.
No, exactly. So we should be expecting it to change.
I just realised then that there was the white van on the inside lane was edging up
Yeah.
to
Why is that?
undertake me. Well, I'm doing 70 on the
Right.
nose,
Yeah. In the centre lane,
and I'm in the centre lane.
and the near side lane is for what? Or what's the centre lane?
The centre lane is for overtaking, and I wasn't overtaking. I had
So-
completed the over, so I should have moved back in. So that's why he was edging up.
Exactly.
So that was my
And why did we find ourselves in that situation?
I had stopped concentrating.
Exactly.
I'm going to move out to the middle lane because there's a line of 3-4 lorries going up the hill, and they're quite a bit slower.
Right. The middle lane?
It's 4.
It's actually 4 lanes. You did notice there was 4 lanes.
I have now.
Good, good.
Well, that was certainly an interesting and enlightening experience. It's just amazing how much I've clearly forgotten since I passed my driving test 30 years ago. Sadly, very few people bother to take any further driver tuition once they've got their licence. But the drivers in our next set of clips could certainly have done with a lesson or two. None more so than the driver of this Ford. It's raining, he ignores a flashing school crossing sign on the left and overtakes on the brow of a hill at the approach to a junction. He narrowly misses a group of schoolboys crossing the road.
Oh, kiddies?
Yeah. It's Duke here.
Yeah.
Definitely Duke here. Excellent.
Oh,
The driver makes it worse once he's pulled over by the police, and he has to swerve to miss a parked car. He was charged with driving without due care and attention for this display of appalling driving. Reversing up a motorway slip road is never a good idea, however desperate you are. Sometimes when you're caught red-handed, waving sorry is not enough.
Bravo 6. Bravo 6 ahead. We got something on
This driver was warned about his behaviour and made to carry on in the proper direction. But despite going in the right direction, this driver has clearly forgotten one of the basic principles of driving. Keep your eyes on the road. However pressed for time you are, attempting to keep up with the office paperwork at the wheel is potentially fatal. As are the actions of this next family, who amazingly stopped in the third lane of the M1 to change a tyre. They couldn't have picked a more dangerous spot, and the police stop to move them swiftly on. Cycling's become the trendy, environmentally friendly way to get around. It may look dangerous, but stunt riders are well protected and train hard before performing tricks like this. In fact, you're in greater danger out on the road than I am standing here. In 1997, there were approximately 24,500 accidents involving cyclists on Britain's roads, and most of those were in built-up areas. And according to a recent report, 2/3 of all cycling deaths in inner London were caused by a collision with a lorry. Despite such shocking statistics, 5 out of 6 cyclists still go out without the one piece of equipment which could save their lives: a helmet. Now, this woman, stopped by the Thames Valley Police, seemed oblivious to all danger. Unperturbed by the heavy lorry, she serenely pedals along. Not only has this cyclist failed to wear any protective clothing at all, but she's also picked a busy motorway as her route. Cyclists and fast-moving traffic do not mix, and pedal cycles are banned from all British motorways. The police eventually grab her attention and stop her. After a telling off, the officers carry her bike to a nearby road so she can quietly carry on home. The next rider is on the right road but needs an urgent lesson in survival. As does this gentleman cyclist.
Bicycle, bicycle, I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle.